So I just rewatched the entire Sacred Chaos. It's my favorite YouTube series of all time. It still holds up. It still holds up. Even though a year has passed and I have a lot more context. I know the YouTube series it comments on. I know the anime it comments on. I know the music it comments on. I know all of these things I didn't the first time around. And I know the philosophy. I specifically went out of my way to read specific texts that it references, just so I could have a more holistic understanding of the series. So even with this additional context, where instead of going into it blind, right, not knowing basically any anime, right, the first time I watched Sacred Chaos, I hadn't seen Lane. I still haven't seen the entirety of Eva, but I hadn't seen Yuasa anime. I didn't have any idea. Like I hadn't seen any slice of life anime at all. So all of that flew over my head, right? The albums, the music it talked about, hyperpop, PC music, Crystal Castles. I hadn't listened to any of them. They were just some vague thing at the back of my head that existed in the world somewhere, right? So the first time I saw the Sacred Chaos, it introduced me to all of this art. It commented on almost entirely things I didn't have any type of understanding of. Like, I hadn't read Deleuze. I had only barely skimmed over some things that Deleuze had written at some point, right? I hadn't actually interacted with Deleuze in any capacity. And this is really what makes the Sacred Chaos just so special. Like, it has this rich background of philosophy and art. It references constantly. It constantly just. It's not insular. It's not trying to be a completely self-contained work. It takes pride in everything it's influenced by. It directly comments on the world around it. And the most important part for why it can do that, right, and still be appealing to someone like me who had no idea what it was commenting on the first time I watched it, right, was that it doesn't really go that in depth about any of it, and when it goes slightly more in depth than usual, it provides an explanation for everything, right? And the thing is, with rewatching it, do you know the reason why I've been listening to this music and reading this philosophy and all that stuff? Do you know why I've been interfacing with all of that art? It's because the Sacred Chaos made me interested in it. The Sacred Chaos was what made me want to understand it in a holistic way. So it retrocausally caused me to become a person that not I. Who cares? Time metaphors don't matter. The Sacred Chaos influenced me to such a fucking deep degree that I had to interface with the things that influenced it in turn, right? So now I rewatched it. I have the context, and it holds up. It holds up like a. It is kind of simplistic, but once you know the context, right? It's not like a really insanely dense work. It kind of provides a surface level commentary on all of these philosophers and artists, but it doesn't need to provide more of a commentary. It's rich enough as it is, It's like the first time I watched The Sacred Chaos, right? Inevitably, it was going to be exciting. It was going to be new at every possible turn. And now, first of all, The Sacred Chaos burned into my brain, right? I remembered almost every single part of the video. It was insane. It's like 10 hours of videos, right? And I remembered basically everything that No said in those videos. Like, There was never a moment where I go like, oh, I forgot that happened. My brain has literally been fucking shaped to be like this fucking sacred Chao. My fucking neurons have connected with each other in the shape of the fucking sacred Chao. Like, it's not an accident that I keep ripping it up. I've just been warped by the amount of influence it has had on me. And I'll get to the analysis part later. I'm just currently sucking no thank you stick for making the sacred Chao. So all of these factors combined, right, and it manages to create something that's entirely novel due to being so tied to these influences. You know, it manages to just integrate so many different themes and processes and thoughts into one non-cohesive series that it just paints a picture of its own meta text. And like I know I'm like kind of a no thank you rip-off channel. Like, look, I take caffeine pills. Wow, where did I get the idea to take caffeine pills? I mean, actually, it's because I was friends with No Thank You, and I was drinking a lot of energy drinks, and then I was like, yeah, hey, no, should I take caffeine pills? And I was like, yeah, because I knew that he took caffeine pills. But still, I'm a no thank you rip-off. Hey, do you want to know why I vape? Do you want to know why I vape? I got addicted to cigarettes, kinda, and then I was like, no, cigarettes are inconvenient. Oh, no thank you, vapes, and he doesn't look like a fucking loser for vaping like everyone else. Oh, I guess I can also vape and look cool. I'm a no thank you ripoff. Except it's actually we're just friends. but still, like this, nothing compares to me to the degree of influence that this artistic expression has had on me. And even though I can start pointing out some minor flaws in the Sacred Chao, like it is kind of slow at points, but it's only slow once you have seen it before, so it doesn't even fucking matter. So, like, it's the only real problem with the Sacred Chao is that at the point where you're ready to rewatch it, when you have the context necessary to rewatch it, it stops kind of being rewatchable to the extent that it can stop being rewatchable, right? Because it's still a comfy series most of the time, right? It's up until the very end. It's just consistently comfy and atmospheric. Like people talk about like how cool Digi's old room was, right? Okay. If you want to look at fucking cool, if you want to see what's fucking cool, right? I'm gonna show you what's fucking cool. I fucking closed the Sacred Chao because I was like, yeah, I'm done watching it. Let's go into my history. No, Sacred Chao here. Hey, you know what's cool? You know what's cool? No thank you's fucking room. Let's see if I can find the actual shot that I'm thinking about. Yes, here. Look, people talk about, hey, look, Digi had a cool fucking tone and aesthetic and atmosphere. Look at this. Digi has never had anything in this fucking type of expression and fucking atmosphere. Because the thing with Digi's room, right, the thing with Digi's room is that it was a set, it was a construct, right? It wasn't something that organically existed and got repurposed by Digi. The thing with No Thank You is that what he shows is what he actually lives, right? No Thank You doesn't... No Thank You doesn't have to set up a recording studio to be his room, and he doesn't have to make his room into a recording studio. He just has an inherently aesthetic existence. And I value that a lot. I value that type of reality a lot, right? And even though the Sacred Chao like isn't a real series in some abstract sense, insofar as it doesn't as it isn't organic fully, right? It doesn't really detract from the fact that it's created by real conditions, right? When you look at the when you look at other similar art, right, it's also created from real conditions, but it executes them like it's all about the execution that needs to be authentic. The authenticity that makes these videos appealing comes from their origin, and the quality of these videos comes from what you can extrapolate from that, right? Like the Horseshoe Saga isn't good because Jesse is suffering, right? That isn't the part that makes the Horseshoe Saga good. The Horseshoe Saga is good because it's incredibly well executed, right? And it has a particular form of expression that you can take a lot from. And to top it off, Jesse is a charismatic person and is an authentic, real person, even though it's scripted and acted and planned. The authenticity still exists and the execution still exists. They aren't contrasting or incompatible. And with the Sacred Chaos, the the execution is fucking amazing, right? Because the fucking no thank you contradicted himself, which he does a lot throughout the series, and that's actually a good thing in my opinion. It's supposed to be about contradictions, which I'll get to later. But no thank you contradicted himself, right? Where at the end of the series, he was like, "Why are you wasting your time watching this video, right? Why are you spending time watching this video when instead you could have been watching Tetsuo the Iron Man?" When in actuality, right, he made the argument for why you would be watching that video in the fucking, I think, Meta Church video, maybe, where he talked about the fucking video he made that was another hate video on Digi, where he talks about like, hey look, Digi isn't a good analyst, but here are the other reasons why you might want to watch Digi. No, Frankie isn't a good storyteller, right? The yes, Frankie narrative wasn't the most compelling story ever told in the history of humanity, right? However, there are other reasons why you would watch a no thank you video and why you would watch Sacred Chaos, right? It's the tone, the atmosphere, the comfiness, the sheer richness of its influences, right? Because even though no thank isn't like the smartest philosopher to ever live, right? He actually cares about the art he consumes, as he has said before, right? Where if he likes a philosopher, right, he'll look up, like he says it himself, where he will look up other people's accounts on that philosophy and that philosopher and so on, right? He'll do his best to understand the things that he cares about, right? And that's what gives this degree of richness to all of the Sacred Chaos, right? It's no Frankie trying to do his best to understand really complex, chaotic systems. Fuck it, I'm just gonna fucking do this video in one shot. I don't fucking care. I just want to fucking ramble about it. So let's talk about the shot composition in the Sacred Chaos, right? Okay, first of all, the Sacred Chaos plays a lot with light, right? So if I wanted to style this shot after the Sacred Chaos, there's a light here, right? Okay, so the Sacred Chaos has multiple uses for light in thematic ways, right? So the first use is, for example, the morning, right? I could use that source of light. The morning in the Sacred Chaos symbolizes a change and a new understanding, right? That's what the morning is used for in the Sacred Chaos, because that's what No Thank You uses it for. We could also point it up at the sky, right? At that lamp, and I could go in between you and the lamp, right, and be backlit, right? That in the Sacred Chaos, right, symbolizes both like a type of teaching from me and also a degree of intimacy that would not exist if you could actually see my face, right? The fact that the backlighting obscures my actual features ends up adding to the to how personal shots feel when they're composed in that way, because that's what they're trying to convey. It's like, okay, look, I am in between you and this lamplight, and I'm about to personally come and convey these ideas to you. That's what backlighting is used for in the Sacred Chaos. Here's another source of light. I just have all of these things accidentally. I didn't plan this, I swear. But like, these are various forms of light that are used in Sacred K, and I can fucking utilize them. I could point my camera at this source of light, put my face in the shot somewhere, which I don't want to do right now, because that would take fucking actual setting up. No, actually I can, no. My phone isn't stable enough and my surroundings aren't stable enough. I'll just fucking drop my phone. It'll be fucking annoying, and it's way too early in the morning to drop my phone because I'll feel bad for causing noise for my neighbors. But the harsh light, right? This type of bright, uncomfortable light symbolizes something being uncomfortable, painful, and maybe even just obviously overstimulating, but also anxious and paranoid. Right? That's what bright and comfortable light is used for in Sacred Chaos. But darkness is also used. Darkness is also used, right? It's not just that light is used. If I turned off the light, right? If I made the shot dark, that also symbolizes something, because okay, what does it symbolize in the Sacred Chaos? It symbolizes a degree of calmness and a degree of purposefulness. That's what darkness symbolizes in the Sacred Chaos, right? Because a big part of the Sacred Chaos is this sentiment that even when you're making a YouTube video, you should be thinking about what you're doing, and when you're watching a YouTube video, you should be thinking about what you're watching, right? You should be thinking about these choices, both when you're making them and when you're consuming them, right? It's like, that's a big part of the fucking series, and that has had a big influence on me. It might seem like just randomly fucking film whatever, and that's also an artistic choice, but most of the time, right, when I have a shot, it has some type of significance, it has some type of meaning, it's me trying to communicate something. Generally, it's just a mood, and I want to use a shot that complements my personal mood, or the origin of my thoughts. But I think about the shots that I actually have, and that's in large part due to the Sacred Chaos. Before I saw the Sacred Chaos, I would just shoot the thing that I'm talking about, right? I would just use the medium of film to demonstrate something really obvious. And that if I didn't want to do that, I would just make a podcast with no film element to it, right? But I don't like making podcasts, and since I have no funky influence, I can just flip scenes into moods and utilize that effectively. Okay, here's another thing about the Sacred Chaos, is that it's an almost entirely post hoc process, right? And this is something that No Funky does often, and I think this is really cool, right? Especially because the Sacred Chaos, in large part, is a commentary about time, how people interact with time, and how people experience time, right? And the fact that No Funky is just willing to repurpose previous parts of the Sacred Chaos into future parts, because time doesn't exist, really serves to make that point for me, really enhances the experience of watching the Sacred Chaos, right? It's because I know that it's happening now. I'm not like lost and confused about it. Oh, my phone is gonna die, so I'm gonna try to be quick before my phone dies. Okay, so actually now I'm just gonna fucking charge my phone and not be a retard. There's a post hoc reasoning. As a culture and artistic whatever, we have this conception that being deliberate means having all the answers before you create the setup, right? Being deliberate means that Endless Chess planned his grand reveal that he was going to make a pony show about pro wrestling before he revealed it, right? It's that we kind of see that type of planning as the essence of deliberation, right? And in the sacred Chao, right, no thank you produces a simulacra of that type of planning through what I'm going to refer to as the ego death of the offer. What do I mean by this? Well, the death of the offer is this concept that interpretations of a work are more valuable than the work itself. So what's the ego death of an offer? It means that the author's post hoc interpretations of the work are as valuable as the deliberately planned goals that the work might have, right? In the case of the sacred Chao, a lot of the themes are post hoc, right? In the first episode, no Frankie didn't even plan to make a series. He just talked about eggs because he likes eggs and he eats them a lot, right? And it was supposed to be a vlog. And since it became a series, he could then iterate on the concept of eggs throughout the entire series until, through entirely post hoc reasoning, the eggs in the first episode ended up symbolizing Discordianism, luck, uh, the meta text of YouTube videos, and so on and so on, right? In essence, through simply deliberating on past choices in the future, No Frankie managed to create this entirely comprehensive but incohesive and indeliberate narrative, right? And that's really fucking cool to me. Like, I know a lot of people might be like, "Oh, that's lame. You can't just make up and be like, oh, I'm gonna decide if I was serious or not after the fact, right? Oh, that just makes you the Schrodinger's douchebag." Because no thank it talks about the Schrodinger's douchebag, right? No thank it goes like, "Oh yeah, um, the, there's the type of person, right, who decides whether or not he was joking after he sees how what he says is received, right? That's a Schrodinger's douchebag." But if you were paying attention, right, you'd have noticed that No Thank You talks about this phenomenon as something positive. What you want to reach is the point where there's no difference between what's a joke and what's serious business, right? You should be able to recontextualize and deterritorialize and do whatever the fuck you want with art, right? The point isn't to have a solid and unchangeable method of artistic expression. The point is to have a malleable, fluid form of both understanding the world and expressing yourself when it comes to your thoughts about the world itself. And in the series of the in so the sacred Chao, right, is obviously a to a degree a satire of what it is itself, right? It's a satire of the quote unquote going insane in a room genre, which I had no idea what it was when I watched the video, but now I'm fairly intimately familiar with the genre and its trappings, right? And it serves effectively as a satire because all good satire does what it wants to. Like, when you parody something, the best way to parody is to create a genuinely good version of what you're trying to parody, but with elements that lend to self-critique, right? And that's what the sacred Chao did, right? That's how it managed to serve as effective satire, right? Because that's a big part of its themings and that's a big part of its metatext. And because it's themed in such a way and because it's a malleable work, it just happened that No Thank You got faced with various changes to his original plan, right? But since his original plan was malleable, it was omnidirectional, it was adaptable, right? He managed to, instead of acting as a parody through creating a specific type of metatext, he managed to create a metatext through the failure of the original metatext he wanted to create. because the original method was like I was supposed to be like, okay, look, here's me going insane, and look how insane I am. I have 3 albums now. I have released 3 different albums, which did not end up happening, right? But since it did not end up happening, he managed to harness the fact that those did not end up happening to make a different point of equal, or in my opinion, superior value of like, look, we don't treat mental health properly when it comes to these videos, and it's still a really hard question of like, how do you justify consuming the art made by mentally ill people that has a purpose of expressing how they're mentally ill, and it's really difficult to explain or justify or come to a proper conclusion on it, because it's not a neutral act, right? You're when you're creating art centered around the fact that you are mentally ill, you are expressing your own feelings. You are to an effect empowering yourself, because you don't have to suffer because of your mental illness, but you can rather use it to create art. But also, you're whoring out your mental illness, and when you're consuming it, you're consuming someone whoring out your mental illness, right? So it's like, what's the relation that we as artists and people who interact with art, what's the relationship that there should be in that space, right? Because we don't want everything to be happy and inauthentic, right? That's not the goal. And I'm still trying to develop a proper solution to it. The solution I had for the longest time was that the distance that was necessary was time, right? I wouldn't want to watch a live stream of someone having a really bad mental breakdown and just consume it, right? I would want to reach out to them, I would want to try to help them, and so on and so on. But like, if it already happened in the past, there's nothing I can do about it. So it's, to me, that was the reason why it was justifiable to interact with it. But nothing's really ever complete in the past. Nothing is ever completely at a specific point in time. So how do you interact with that? How do you, as a human being who has empathy, both consume this art for your own sake, whether because it helps you cope, or whether because it provides a powerful emotion to you, and also how do you support the artist in a actual tangible way, instead of, oh, I'm gonna fall down to your feet and worship you for bringing me this art, right? And that's a complicated question. That's a really complicated question, and that's not something anyone can have the answers to, you know. But through the series of events that transpired, and due to being bipolar, the entire landscape of the sacred chaos is this intangible shifting narrative, I guess, which was personified by the references to the Cthulhu mythos and so on and so on and so on. But like, that's just a side tangent that I don't think is important enough to actually get into right now. Let's pull up my notes. Because uh oh yeah, so identities, right? The sacred chaos, right, primarily serves as a critique of identity. That's the overarching theme of it. Like, in the first episode, right, the context of the first episode through the series is to set up the identity of No Thank You as he would be normally, right? The first episode of the Sacred Chaos is just the mundanity of No Thank You, and that's where No Thank You started extrapolating from, right? He started being like, okay, so this is my default state. Let's try to push it in different directions, and through doing that, he um he managed to actually create the okay, no, Frank is messaging me right now because I wanted to interview. So here's. So sorry to interrupt the flow of the video, but this is for the sake of the interview that I guess you'll hear right now. Ah, it's the offer of the sacred Chao. No, thank you.
Bitch.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing I wanna know, is, what do you think of the sacred Chao now? There's been like almost a year.
I think it holds up well.
Yeah, it does hold up. Like, like I already talked about this, but I don't fucking care. I'm talking to no thank you, not the fucking video. Like, the thing is, the first time I saw the sacred Chao, I hadn't seen basically any anime. I hadn't listened to any of the music you were talking about. I didn't know the going insane in a room chant. I now have like a year of context, and I know basically like everything you were talking about. And it's explicitly because of the sacred Chao that I know any of it.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah. And so I was watching it. I rewatched it with that extra context, and it's like, damn, this still holds up. It's still like the atmosphere is just probably one of the best atmospheres ever created on the planet.
Hazukashi
Yeah, what's Hoshikoshi?
means it's embarrassing. Come on, don't even know your fucking
I
animes.
don't know my fucking. I've still only seen like 50 animes or
You don't
something.
even speak anime. You don't speak anime language, you moonrooms.
Yeah, like I, I remember how basically when an episode would come out, they would just DM me and be like, "Okay, here are all of my thoughts ordered about everything in that episode." Or if I didn't do that, I would just put that in my fucking video, whatever video I was making. That was a fun
Yeah,
time.
that was a fun time.
Yeah,
I because you told me you were doing this Sacred Cow analysis.
yeah,
I was like, I should go back and watch some of the Sacred Cow. So I watched back episode 4, and I was like, it's pretty funny.
yeah. I, I mean, that's what you want from a YouTube series to an extent.
Yeah,
Like, it's by its nature not something you can really like. You can't be pretty funny in any other medium without it being garbage. You know.
yeah. Yeah. I think right in anime and manga,
That's
like
true. That's true.
the thing I think about Sacred Cow, I think it holds up better than Denpa does.
Yeah, probably. Like,
Probably because it's less focused.
uh,
Like Denpa is very strictly focused on certain topics, and so it's easy for it. Like when it gets sidetracked or when it gets um, like wishy-washy, it's very obvious because it's so focused. But Sacred Cow is inherently like unfocused, and so those things don't matter at all.
yeah, like the thing with the Sacred Chaos is I remember basically everything you said in it. Like it's just fucking burned into my mind. Like when you, in the last episode you were like, oh, you could be watching a movie instead of watching the Sacred Chaos, for example. And then you took a pause and I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna say Tetsuya Ironman, and he said Tetsuya Ironman. Like I just fucking, it's burned into my mind. Like my mind was a
I don't even
CD.
remember that. You want to know the true secret about the Sacred Cow?
What's a true secret?
The true secret is that it was inspired by the Gecko estate. I don't know if that's a secret. I don't remember if I mentioned that. But basically, I ended up rewatching Gecko Estate, Everything is Devilman before I made Sacred Cow, and then I watched that, and then I was like, okay, time to rewatch all of Gecko Estate, and I was like, this is. Did you never really finish this? Like, I should just make my own version that actually has a conclusion and is like I should make a series because up until then I'd just been making individual disconnected vlogs.
Yeah.
But after that, I was like the format where like because all of the gecko estates, they're like, how do I put it? They're they're not. It's almost like a anthology. Like they're not. It's not one overarching narrative, but they're all thematically linked.
Mm-hmm.
That's based, and so I was like, I'm just gonna copy that.
It's fun. It's funny how I'm like, oh, I'm gonna copy the Sacred K, and I just made a fucking anthology of connected themes.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah. Like the thing with Tenpa for me is like it doesn't have that. Like it might just be that I saw Sacred Chaos first, but like Tenpa never had that quality for me when it was like, this is everything I've ever wanted to see from things, you know.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah,
Because yeah, Denpa's like more of a. I'm trying to make a point here,
mm-hmm.
whereas Sacred Cow is more of like a. There are points. Points exist, but I'm just gonna sort of run around the points. I'm just gonna. How do I put it?
Oh,
You know what I'm trying to say.
oh my favorite part of the Sacred Chaos, because it's just kind of epitomizes like what YouTube specifically can get away with. Is at the end of every episode you're like, this is a series, please pay attention to it. Like you couldn't do it anywhere else. Like it would just be fucking, like you couldn't get away with it.
What do you mean?
Like imagine if like at the end of Iron Man, right, you had like fucking James Foley or whoever the fuck made Iron Man be like, okay, look at this fucking post credit scene. This is leading up to something, you know?
This was literally again a Digibo copy
Was it?
because it's from that was inspired by the failed fucking How They Marketed series.
Oh yeah,
Have you seen the beta version of the first episode of How They Marketed? Not the release version, but the one that's on Patreon.
I haven't seen the first episode of how they marketed.
That's like a really good video, and I watched it and I got really mad that the series never happened, and I got really mad at Digi for never being able to finish anything.
Like, did you just talked about like, oh, I never finished how they market, and there was like, oh, I just don't fucking care, I guess.
The first episode of How They Marketed is pretty cool, and it has like a pretty innovative monetization system, like people pay to put their adverts in it.
Oh, that's neat.
So it's like the sponsorship thing, but with your own fans.
That's kind of fucking
That
dope.
was yeah, it was neat, and it has like all sorts of setup because the point of How They Marketed was it was supposed to be a grander narrative about um Digi learning to market themselves
Yeah.
and like stuff like that, but it never happened. But yeah, the first episode of How They Marketed and even the surrounding things Digi made around the same time, they literally just say how they literally. I forgot what video it is, but there's a Digi video, and it literally just text pops up that says How They Marketed is a series with a narrative.
Yeah, yeah. Sure is.
Yeah, and so I just copied that, but I actually made a series with a narrative.
Yeah. Like, like a thing I really like that you do is the entire like, like I coined it pretentiously the ego death of the author. We just reinterpret things you have said before to fit whatever you're currently saying. Like I really appreciate that, because it's like it's a practical application of all of the fucking philosophy about time and like rhizomes and whatever.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I just do it because I am not good at thinking of things in the future, but I'm good at analyzing things from the past. Like I'm really bad at planning out endings,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm be good at uh, um you know the meme of like, oh, book, the curtains were blue, English teacher, oh, the blue curtains represents the author's set. You know that meme?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really good at that.
Yeah.
And so I just do that to myself because it makes me that way I can seem smarter than I am.
Yeah, but like the thing with it is that it works exactly as effectively. Like it's
Yeah, and because no one can tell either you can't tell the difference, which is most of the time. Like, okay, pretty much like I guess ego death of the author is a good way of putting it, because it's like Hidamari's sketch bath scenes analysis, for example.
Yeah.
The whole point of that video is that you can is about death of the author. Like it's about how you can read things into a work that make it better, even if or have some effect on the work, even though the author probably never thought about it. You know, that's why the section is
Mm-hmm.
there about superhuman with the framing devices he uses, even though I can 100% guarantee that that stuff was not intentional. Like you just treat it as if everything's intentional, and then you can find a bunch of interesting stuff regardless of how much it actually reflects the intentionality. So it's like when you employ that to yourself, it's like you're exploring your own subconscious,
Yeah.
or your own. You're no longer treating yourself like you know yourself, which is just interesting, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, the one part of the series that kind of frustrated me for entirely personal reasons was every time we talk about how much you don't understand immersion. However, upon rewatching it, it was like, oh, like the entire point of this of like the fucking last episode is like, is this like is this how you would get people immersed? Like, and it was just kind of blatantly just saying like, look, immersion is kind of retarded. And that was like, that was fucking cool.
I don't think I did that on purpose.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be on purpose. That's the fun part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't understand immersion really. That's just a genuine opinion I have.
Yeah, I mean, I think we reached a conclusion if that we're like when people say that they get immersed, they don't mean like, oh, I actually think something is real. It just means that they think something is more important than reality.
Or it's more like they're just able. It's just they're able to suspend their disbelief without like for example, uh,
I
I
mean,
saw something the other day that was a good example of this in something where it was like, oh fuck, what was it? Was it in Index? I don't remember. Oh yeah. In Index season 2, in the third arc, characters just keep running into each other constantly, even though they're just wandering. Like in the whole Academy city, they just keep happening to run into all the important characters, and it's like every time that, like the first times it happened, I was like, okay, that's fine, but then it kept happening, and I was like, are they trying to make a point, or is this just terrible writing? And so then it was like every time it would happen, because it happens like 50 times, they just keep running into each other. It's so maybe there's a point behind it that I have, because I haven't finished the arc yet, but I'm pretty sure there isn't. Um,
I, I,
the
I, kn-
same thing happens in oh fuck, what like novel adaptation is it? Air. In the adaptation of Air, characters just run into each other all the time, and it doesn't make sense in anime, but makes sense in a visual novel because, well, for reasons.
I mean, like, I know you don't like JoJo's, but JoJo's like actually plays on that concept like pretty heavily, where it just goes like, yeah, there's a magical power that makes people run into each other.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I mean, like lots of like that's what I would be okay with that
Yeah,
basically. Like I don't they're like it's fine if you do something for writing convenience, but I would like you to not treat me like I'm an idiot because you like don't think I didn't notice it basically.
yeah,
Like
like,
if JoJo's is like characters keep running into each other because of magical reasons, or the same thing. Star Wars does the exact same thing. Um, it's like, okay, so you're basically saying, I know the audience isn't stupid enough that they won't notice that the characters keep running into each other, so we'll just have a reason for it because that they know that I know that you know that we know that we're just doing this for writing convenience because characters need to interact with each other, and it's annoying to have to come up with a convoluted reason why they run into each other every time. So here it's magic. Like rather than just being like, oh, the audience is too stupid to even think about why characters would run into each other randomly in a city of millions of people.
like, that's really the thing with immersion. It's just people don't like when they have to like pretend that there's an explanation for things that there clearly isn't an explanation for, and like for you to just kind of like lose yourself in the experience where you just don't care about the world around you or whatever, and you're immersed, right? You kind of need things to have explanations, you know?
Mm. But the thing about immersion I don't get is basically the fact that I'm just always thinking about the meta of whatever I'm doing.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
that's like I wouldn't understand I don't know, playing a video game and not also being acutely aware of the fact that you're playing a video game.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who can get like my one friend who isn't going to be named on my YouTube channel, has described how when he plays a video game, he literally just loses himself in the character, where he just goes like, "Oh, I'm not doing inputs on a controller. I'm moving around in a character," and like I don't
Yeah.
get immersion to that extent, but it's like a spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm probably just far on the other side of the spectrum where I just don't like I'm just constantly aware of what I'm doing
yeah.
basically. Basically I'm the only conscious human being because I'm the only self-aware person.
I mean, I'm not conscious. That's
Yeah, exactly. That's
yeah.
why I said I'm the only one. This is a common misconception is that Dotesmite is sapient or capable of intelligent thought.
I, does anyone think that at this point anymore?
Hopefully not.
Uh, I think that's everything I can fucking ask
I
about
don't
Secret
think you
Care.
know what an interview is.
I mean, I thought I would like ask about like some specific things, but I'm like, I don't fucking care anymore.
I would need to probably rewatch the series if I wanted to answer specific questions anyway, because I
Yeah,
don't really. It was quite a while ago.
yeah, like it's like I really just wanted to talk about like the one thing I talked about because I fucking forgot the other thing I wanted to talk about. Let me
Oh,
see if
the
I can
other thing
remember.
is Sacred Cow was all an advert for my music, by the way, in case you didn't notice.
Yeah, no, I've only seen the series twice.
Yeah, just in case you didn't notice,
Yeah,
it only
just
exists to advertise my own music, and it didn't even work.
yeah, just in case, go on nothankyou.bandcamp.com and look at the encyclofutility.
Anyway, while I'm here, Patreon.com.
Yeah,
By the
patreon.com/nothankyou.
for real though, but while I'm here, exclusive scoop. Um, it's I'll just say this: it's not Sacred Cow season 2. I'll just say that, and then I'll just leave it there. It's not Sacred Cow season 2, but something's happening.
Okay, okay. I had a fucking cool question I wanted to ask. I don't care, fuck it, I'm just gonna fucking stop recording. So that was a fun time. That was a fun time. You heard me talking to No Thank You, and we stayed in voice chat for a while, and I had to do things. But here's the rest of the Sacred Chaos analysis. The rest of the Sacred Chaos analysis. So, as the series goes on, it becomes more incoherent, both when it comes to identity and expressions thereof. Right. So, in the start of the series, right, there's the coherent identity of No Thank You, but then we get these various incoherent identities and various incoherent expressions, right, where it culminates in the finale being dominated by Yes Thank You, right, which is a different form of No Thank You. That's the entire joke, because like when it comes to other series in these genres, all the characters, right, they're just different forms of the author who have been altered slightly into their own distinct directions, right? So that's how Sacred Chaos practically tackles identity, right? It critiques it not through just critiquing it verbally or linguistically, but it also critiques identity through its own structure by demonstrating a less and less coherent sense of it until the question is inevitably posed, right? What does identity even mean? Is identity even real? Am I my wired self or my meat-space self? Who is the I person now? As a enlightened doubts might, right? I'm radicalized against the self. The self doesn't exist. This is relatively obvious at this point in time, but when I first saw the Sacred Chaos, right, it was like, yo, I'm learning these things for and thinking about them, and it's like, Yeah, that is interesting. I've never thought about exactly what it means to have a persona versus a character versus just acting different around different people, right? So that was enlightening. But yeah, so well, oh yeah, the other main theme of the series that isn't identity is a general sense of disillusionment, right? As the series goes on and on, it progresses into various forms of disillusionment, right? So at the start, it's disillusionment with the world, right? The world in general, society, governments. Then it turns into, okay, it's disillusionment with the procrastinators, podcast, and digi, right? And then eventually it becomes disillusionment with the entire post-PCP scene. And after that, it's just disillusionment with No Frankie himself, right? Again, in the last episode, the central progression goes from No Frankie being like, yeah, look, is it going insane in your room, genre unethical, right? And the conclusion he comes to, like, this is to me the important part. He goes like, oh, is it funny that I'm going insane, right? And then this is the step that like really cements this kind of thematic structure for me. Is that he says, yeah, it might be kind of funny. It might be kind of funny, and to me that really puts this structure into place. So the final thing that I want to analyze that really influenced me, not in a direct way, but an indirect way, which just kind of gave me the direction to properly take my channel in, was the structure of the series. Because in this type of scene, right, in this PCP slash post PCP scene, there's this overarching um, consensus that specific videos relate to channels, right? And in my own egotistical way, I feel like I've taken this concept farther than anyone else really has, right? I feel like no one else other than me has taken the concept of like the complete sublimation of a video into the meta of a channel into to such an extent that I have, because all like none of my videos are I've talked about this before. But yeah, like in the Sacred Chaos, right? No Thank You constantly references his own channel, his history with making videos, various videos he has made, the meta text of those videos, and what his future plans are, right? So this means that not only does the richness of the Sacred Chaos derive from the fact that it has large influences, right? It has a large degree of sincerity when it comes to just exploring various different parts of the world. It also explores No Thank You's own like YouTube presence a lot. And this is definitely something that people like Jesse and Tishi have done, right? And it's not like something No Thank You came up with himself, right? It's something that it's something that's really influenced by those people. But what he did, right? What he did is he made the meta text, right, the point of the text, right? Sacred Chaos was always about self-reflection. And since No Thank You as a person is someone who does make YouTube videos, it necessarily had to be about the YouTube videos that he makes, right? Like this is an inevitable phenomenon, and again, this isn't something that's necessarily innovative, right? But it's like the tone and the aesthetic of the history makes it so the Sacred Chaos can be a starting point instead of a single piece. So when it comes to, for example, the Jesse videos, right? When it comes to the Horseshoe Saga, that can technically be a starting point. If you've never seen a Jesse video, right, you can watch the Horseshoe finale, and you can be like, oh yeah, well, I guess I understand Jesse's history and the internet now. But it makes more and more sense when you've been through the videos that were released, right? Ideally, from Drowning in Footwear, right? But if you've seen the entire Horseshoe Saga episode by episode, you already got most of the story, right? So even though the horseshoe finale is a decent jumping on point, and the horseshoe saga is a decent jumping on point, they're not meant to be like, okay, look, this is an introduction to Jesse, right? It's meant to be like, okay, this is the conclusion of Jesse, right? Before he made himself into endless Jess, right? Here, it's like post horseshoe finale, whatever. And after, like, I could bring more examples, but the thing that No Thank You captures a lot from the post PCP crowd, because this is something I see really heavily explored in that crowd, is the idea that he can just recount his entire history and make that into a compelling self-reflection, right? Like on multiple occasions, he just goes through his entire channel, shows examples to illustrate various points he makes. So it's not like it has to be forced into the video, but rather that by the nature of the video being a vlog, it necessarily incorporates previous videos. If that makes any fucking sense. I don't know if I'm making sense at this point. Honestly, I haven't eaten today, so I'm kind of getting more incoherent, and I just kind of have to wait until I can eat. So, one other theme that the series iterates upon a lot is the nature of information and knowledge, and what transferring that implies, right? Because the series treats information as a force, right? Because information is basically a force. And by treating information as a force, you can get a much more interesting social analysis than if you were to just consider information to be just some neutral phenomenon. So what do I mean by this? Well, when No Thank You talks about learning things from reading Deleuze, right? He doesn't go like, oh yeah, Deleuze taught me these things. He goes like, okay, I prostrate myself before Deleuze to steal his knowledge, to make it my own, or whatever the fuck, right? And this type of approach to, like this really physical, really solidified approach to information makes way more fucking sense in the age of the internet, right, than a more abstracted version would make, right? Since the internet is inherently abstracted, which in turn means that abstracted things in the internet are equivalent to solid things, right? Things as abstracted as likes and followers, or knowledge, or secrets or mysteries, right? That don't have any type of physical form, become as solid as anything else, as people, as works of art, as anything you could imagine, when everything's abstracted under the regime of the wired, right? So it's really interesting to treat things more physically when they're virtual. I guess that's my point. It's like real fucking cyberpunk shit. It's real neuromancer shit. It's diving into the wired and seeing how everything that you thought was abstract becomes solid, and representations become the things that they themselves are. And every postmodernist like fucking concept realizes itself in the fucking deterritorialized landscape of the fucking wired, until it solidifies into meta meat space, which is its own fucking issue. That's an interesting part of the fucking show. Another thing that I wanted to point out as just like, okay, I'm just gonna fucking suck No Thank You stick now, is that the oratorial skill in the Sacred Chaos is actually completely unparalleled when it comes to this genre, except by Jesse, basically. Like, when it comes to like other people like Digi or Plunder or Osaka Syndrome or whoever, no one else has this type of like ability to transform sentences into these really impactful, meaningful statements as No Thank You does. Because his delivery when he's saying things like, one time I had this experience with No Thank You, where we were in a call, and he was reading out things I had said, or rather he was repeating things I had said in a video for contrived reasons, convoluted reasons that I won't get into. And I was like, damn, hearing no thank you repeat things that I say makes me believe that I can fucking formulate coherent sentences. Because, for example, the way I present myself is in this fucking convoluted network of flowing, uh, disjointed sentences that constantly have just random breaks, random fucking patterns of speech, all within this like general, consistent flow, which adjusts based on what I'm talking about, right? But when no thank you talks, there's no real flow. It's statement after statement in a really coherent way that makes it incredibly easy to just follow along to the points. And just hearing no thank you, like read out some book, makes that book inherently more understandable. Like, this is another large appeal of the Sacred Chaos, which is it's it's really fucking well presented, just not just through all of these other things like themes and cinematography and structure, but also through this sense of like it's kind of like being preached to. No, thank you is a fucking preacher in the fucking Wired. That's what I'm saying. No, thank you is going to lead a doomsday cult. Tempo Mob is just no thank you's fucking experiment of how far you can push a fucking doomsday cult. I don't fucking know. I'm tired. Like, making an analysis video while tired. Not necessarily the best idea, but I don't fucking care. This is the Toads My channel. We don't fucking care. We're just here to suck no thank you stick. That's the entire purpose of the Toads My channel. So the final thing that really influenced me when it comes to Sacred Chaos is a combination of just a person's everyday life with the more thoughtful, nuanced, philosophical statements that are presented. Because generally, when it comes to vlogs like this, they take two distinct forms. Either they're just analyzing mundanity or taking part in mundanity or showing something that relates to mundanity, or they're doing something incredibly thoughtful and they're just making philosophical points and so on and so on. But the thing that the Sacred Chaos captures that other series haven't captured, at least in my opinion, is that it was necessarily created in conjunction to learning about things and thinking about things. It wasn't like No Thank You is presenting things that he has already thought about, as I said before, but rather the Sacred Chaos is inherently a part of No Thank You currently learning new things, which creates this really, really interesting and dynamic combination of learning something and then talking about the thing that you have learned and trying to convey and contextualize that information. And that's really the thing that has influenced me the most. Like, even though in a really subtle way, in a more structural way than a direct way, that's still the way I structure basically everything I do. I try to make sure that when I'm making videos, I'm also learning something. I try to make sure that I don't make videos from the perspective of things I already have learned. And a lot of that comes from the Sacred Chaos, because I saw that you could execute upon the idea that you have learned something, right? in recent history in this really interesting way. So that's just how I make videos now. I guess that's just kind of the format that everything I do has to take. And it's unique in a weird way where you wouldn't think it's unique. You'd think that other people would have done something similar, where they vlog just because they want to show what they've been learning. But that doesn't really happen. Usually there's this really obvious delineation, right, even when it comes to mainstream vlogs, where people either just talk about the things they're learning, or they just talk about things they're doing, or they just talk about that they're vlogging. And I have never before or since seen anyone other than No Thank You really put the learning process into the context of mundanity. Because as a society, right, we have this distinct idea that there's a special time for learning, right? We have this idea that though you learn when you're in school, or you learn when you're in university, or you learn when you're reading a book or doing a hobby, but when it comes to me, I'm always learning. That's my autism. My autism is learning things, and it means that necessarily, no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I am, I'm always thinking about things and learning new things and trying to get a better understanding of the world. And I haven't seen anyone else present that as just a mundane thing you could just be doing as a part of your everyday life. No one else has presented learning things as comparable to making breakfast and eating eggs. It always seems like people have to put that as a special thing in a special category, and that's just not how it works. That's just not how that process takes place. And really, if I were to pin down the sacred Kaya to one large influence it has had on me, it's just the fact that I can present myself as a learning process, and that I can present myself as someone who is constantly learning things in a malleable way, whether it's ICP or cosmology or quantum physics or philosophy or politics or anime or whatever. I can always present myself as someone who's just learning as a part of their everyday life. And that entire thing is due to the sacred Kaya. And that's important to me. Because I don't just want to talk about things I learned when I was younger or anything like that. I want to be able to just constantly go through my process. And that's really the big fucking influence that the sacred Kaya has had on me. All the other things are minuscule compared to it. All the other things are just accessories. But that one is important. That one is very important. So yeah, I guess that's the fucking everything I have to say about the sacred Kaya. Yeah, fucking great series. Just honestly. So I'm currently taking a break from watching the Sacred Kaya finale because I've made this pact with myself that I'll properly understand the Sacred Kaya. And since no thank you referenced this essay, I'm gonna read this essay the same way I read the Principia Discordia and the Conspiracy Against the Human Race and made myself more familiar with the Luz and the CCRU. But yeah, so I'm taking a quick break and I had an ending for this video in mind. So I'm just gonna go ahead with it. So, as you probably know, the last 15 videos, including this one, were a series. It was an intentional statement, and it's about to end. In 2 weeks on 413, I'm going to just end the series. I'm gonna uh, release the finale. I'm gonna put up a trailer tomorrow. But if you want to see the story thus far, there's a playlist on my channel. It's the Fire Kanji, and it has all of the videos that were a part of the series if you want to catch up on it. And you don't have to watch all of them. It's a rhizomatic experience. It's not linear. It doesn't matter which order you experience it in, like genuinely. Although I would suggest watching the iPod Touch video first. But that aside, also, The Young Toads Martin losing the plot video was also kind of a part of the series, but that happened before I had an idea for a series. It just detailed how I realized that I can't have an artistic and personal future as Mindbreak. Because Mindbreak was this idea that I um, could use my emotions in a deliberately self destructive way to capitalize on the type of stimulation that in some part I need. But as I realized more and more that that wasn't tenable, I started losing the plot, quote unquote. So, if you want to see the process that led up to this entire saga, you could go and watch that video too. It's the one right before Type of Touch video if you go into my channel history. So yeah, that's the satisfying ending to this video. And also, there's an Easter egg in this video. It's hidden the same way that Easter eggs are hidden in the Sacred Chaos. So if you've seen the Sacred Chaos, you can find it immediately. It's nothing special, but I just wanted to throw it in there just for the sake of coherence with the subject matter that I'm talking about. So yeah, thank you for watching. Doubly thank you if you've seen my previous videos in this saga. And that's all I really ask. If if I could ask for more, I could ask just that you pay some attention, you think about it a bit, but that's not really necessary. I'll come in with the explanation soon enough.